Heretic. Okay, I really like this movie. This was a very good one. Special thanks to my big friend Joe for recommending this one. My only recommendation I got. Fresh out of 824, baked like a nice blueberry pie. This is a good movie. All right, brief synopsis. I'm trying really hard to kind of capture this movie. It's something you have to experience. It's a very kind of complicated film with some pretty nuanced ideas that can only really be ingested through the actual watching of it. I'm not very great at summarizing, but I'll try my absolute best. This is definitely a challenging movie to cover because of all of its contradicting ideas and its kind of twists throughout. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis. Spoiler warning, I'm not going to meander around you if you haven't watched it, so just, yeah, don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie. Basically, two missionaries for the Mormon church make their way to a man's house where he tests their faith and questions their religion. The seemingly more intelligent girl fails to understand his true deep-seated intentions, while the seemingly less intelligent girl shocks the audience by fully understanding what is happening. At the end of the day, there's a film just about justifying acts of atrocity and what personal beliefs mean to people. In short, it is kind of an anti-religion movie at the beginning, but it kind of just turns into an anti-religion film kind of towards the end, and it becomes more about letting people believe in what they want to rather than try to control what they think. Like, let people have their beliefs for their own reasons and not generalize why people believe certain things. That is probably my best way of interpreting it and explaining it, but the best way to fully understand it is just to watch it yourself. I cannot really fully conceptualize. I'm going to try. What I liked, the cinematography is incredible. There's that one scene where she's going up the cellar and then it shows the kind of like the set thing that he created, like the maze, not the maze, the set he created, and it shows her coming out of it, and she's like a miniature on the little set, and then you watch her enter the room as she enters the room on the set. That was just a really good scene. I'll play it right now. Yeah, and that is just a very small example. There's a lot of dynamic angles. There's a lot of very movement-oriented angles that follow objects or people as they do something. The way they frame Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, is just, oh my god. They make him seem so intimidating without him even saying anything malicious. Like, he will just say a goofy thing, but the way they frame it and the way they pose him next to them just gives him such a sense of, like, overbearing and just, like, viciousness that you can't really put into words. The film just overall has really good twists. It just always keeps you second guessing. Things will happen, and then something will contradict it. And then something will contradict the contradiction, and then the reality is revealed, which it's executed very well, and just overall the movie has very good twists. The acting by Hugh Grant for Mr. Reed is just top notch. Like, I loved him. Like, it was so good. I think this film was genuinely more funny than a lot of comedies, like straight-up comedies, like just because of his performance, because it's such a he's talking about such horrific things, but he's adding such like a goofball energy to it where you really can't help but chuckle when he says things.
But I'm a creep. Huh? I'm a weirdo. Okay. What the hell am I doing? I know these are things you're thinking right now, but they're also lyrics you recognize, yes?
It's a pretty slowly paced film, but it allows you to appreciate certain scenes and certain outcomes more. They love using Chekhov's gun in this film, and it kind of comes full circle at the end. But just overall, the slow reveals and the slow build-ups really add that level of tension and intrigue to this film. Things I disliked. Okay, this is when it gets complicated. So basically, Mr. Reed, by the end of the film, is just revealed to be basically a psychopath. His anti-religious beliefs are used to kind of masquerade his just sadistic nature. He just ends up being just this murderous animal, basically, at the end. He has this obsession with control, and this obsession with figuring people out, and he uses anti-religious ideologies to kind of just cover that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of anti-religion, but I feel like they could have done something to add a little more, like, love into the mental game aspect of it, making it not really a physical defeat, but a moral and a belief one. Like, it's a destruction of his beliefs, not his physical body, because he ends up just dying at the end because he gets stabbed in the head. But I feel like it would have been so much better if he truly did believe in what he was talking about. Like, he had these core beliefs that were seated in anti-religion, And that was more of what he was fighting for, not necessarily his sadistic nature, but because he believes in these things. At the end of the day, he really doesn't. You see that when he's actually kind of like defeated on a like moral level. He falsely assumes things about the character Paxton. He falsely assumes things about her, and he ends up dying. And that should have been the defeat, was him falsely assuming things, not him actually dying. Like, I know that's kind of interesting, but by killing him with a physical way, by actually stabbing him, you kind of take away from that mental victory that she achieved by proving him wrong. And it would have been better if instead of him dying, he had a moment of realization and a moment of moral destruction where he finds that his viewpoint is flawed in a way that he needs to consider. Because the whole thing is that they're challenging his ideas, and he's coming up with things to circumvent them or things to second guess their ideas. But by having him at the end of the day, his ideals are secondary to his sadistic side. I think that undermines kind of the thematic elements when it comes to his anti-religious views and everything like that. I feel like if they led it more in a way where he did actually believe it when he was talking about it, he did have these views, and he did truly want to prove himself right or wrong, that would have been a little more interesting than kind of what they end up going with, which I know that seems a little contradictory to what I've been saying and the things I will say about why I like this, but still, I feel like there was a way they could have gone that would have made it even better. I probably could figure out, this is a very complicated film, I'm not at that level yet, but overall I think the thematic elements could have been better handled by the end. And also, this film isn't super influential. They didn't do anything crazy groundbreaking. It was very bold with its religious viewpoints, but overall it's not a super crazy film when it comes to how it influenced everything. So in like 20 years from now, it will just be remembered as a good film, not a monumental film. So that, I guess that's not really a critique, it's more of just something that exists in it. It didn't do anything absurdly new. It had a lot of interesting angles, but I feel like it wasn't groundbreaking enough to cement it in history as this monumental piece. Favorite scene? Okay, so Sister Paxton, when freaking Guy is dying, he asks her to pray for them as more of a like poking fun at her because they're both bleeding out, like they're most likely gonna die. So he asked her in like kind of a joking way, pray for us, because again his whole thing is anti-religion. And she gives this very, very good speech about an experiment done, which I'm pretty sure was a real experiment, where there was some hospital patients were basically split, like randomly split into two groups. One group was prayed for and they prayed, they were given religious guidance, stuff like that, they were prayed for, they prayed. And then another group that had nothing to do with religion, they didn't pray, they weren't prayed for, and both groups performed the exact same. Like there was no difference. Being prayed for or praying didn't actually accomplish anything. She doesn't care that it does anything. She says that the ability to think of someone else for even just a moment is what makes praying so real to her. That is what makes her belief so powerful. And that kind of goes to that kind of lends its hand to why a lot of people follow religion, not necessarily because they believe it or not, but because it's in line with their personal beliefs, regardless of religion, regardless of what happens when you die, but more or less a spiritual level that most people can't even understand unless you are that person. So it really lends into why people believe in what they believe, which I thought was really well done, and that kind of encapsulates the entire film. That one scene where she's explaining how she knows that praying probably doesn't do anything, but she does it anyway. That is such a powerful thematically and emotionally scene that I couldn't even like when I was watching, I was like, okay, this is my favorite scene. This is very well done. And I also really love the concept of doing things not because they will give you an effect, but just to do them to pursue your own personal beliefs. That is one of my favorite thematic elements, that idea of doing something regardless if it will give an effect or not, just to do it because you believe in it. And I think that scene was perfect for it. And I thought that was one of my favorite taking a stand scenes, which that's a whole concept to me that I've thought about for a while, and I might explain it one day. But that right there is her taking a stand scene, where she takes a stand against his beliefs regardless of a consequence, just because she believes in it. Which, bam, beautiful scene. Overall, this film was immaculate. I am going to give it a very hard 9 out of 10. Okay, with how much I'm glazing it, you might have expected a 10 out of 10. But again, in my mind, very little things are perfect. this film will most likely not be very influential or remembered that highly. It is so far my favorite A24 movie, but I don't think 20 years from now people are going to be talking about this film, which is a depressing thing to say, but it is just simply the truth. It doesn't have anything lending to it that makes it super influential. Also, like I said, I feel like there was a bit of a cop-out when it comes to Mr. Reed just turning into this sadistic psychopath at the end. Like, you kind of figure out that this was just kind of a facade. He's, like, the girl ended up being right. Like, he's not really trying to test them. He's just kind of trying to prove himself right. And so when he's met with real traction, he just gives up and tries to kill them. Like, I feel like that is not great. I feel like they should have doubled down on that idea of a mental game. And it ends up falling to that cliche of, oh, he's just a psychopath, which I feel like it was definitely a loss of potential. I feel like this could have gone in a very, very, very interesting way where it does just turn into this mental battle where they end up proving themselves against him. And I think that would have been way better. So yeah, that's probably what's keeping it from being higher rated in my eyes. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Yep, but to kind of wrap this whole shebang up, very good movie, good acting, good cinematography. I'm gonna compare it to my review to other people. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 91 for a critic review, and I think a 76 for a popcorn meter, like an audience review. I would not give this movie a 76. Even with, if you strip away all the thematic elements, this is still like an 8 out of 10. Like, the cinematography is fantastic. The set design is crazy. The acting is immaculate. Like, you could put this in front of a baby and they would think it was interesting. They would appreciate it for just the visual elements, let alone the thematic weight to it. Yeah, so I definitely would disagree with anything below it 8. I could see people disliking it, again, for kind of the same reasons I do. I feel like there was some missed potential here, but I do really like what it still did. It wasn't terribly executed. Even with what it had, it still was executed in a way that made you enjoy it. So yeah, some people definitely reviewed this harshly. I liked it. And yeah, that's Heretic. Definitely watch it. Goodbye.